And now, another episode of Memorial Elvis Festival.
Can I have service, please?
We hate to wait in line. At the grocery store, we relentlessly pursue the checkout line that's moving the quickest. We even consider using the 12 items or less line where we have 14 items. We wonder, does 12 mean 12 different items? What if I had 5 of the same thing? Finally, when we pick the line that we think is moving the quickest, we just get in line and the register next to it opens. And before you can move, someone else jumps in that line. And then another person. You still follow them because your line is longer. Shortly after you switch lines, the light above the register starts flashing. The cashier needs to do a price check. So you start looking for another line. Some people just use the 12 items or less line, even if they have 14, maybe 15 items. And then there are those people who you can see them. They start pushing their car faster and faster. They're racing you to get in line. Leave your cart for half a minute, and someone jumps in line in front of you. And then when you come back, they try to say, "Oh, I didn't realize that cart was in line." That's why they put the red dispenser at the deli counter with the sign that says, "Take a number, please." We're an impatient nation, and it seems like every day it's getting worse. We can't wait for more than a few seconds for something. Some researchers and sociologists blame technology. Everything is right there at our fingertips. Cell phones, iPhones, Facebook, streaming videos, downloadable books, video games, the cloud. Yet, Scripture shows us that technology isn't the only culprit. Human nature simply doesn't like to wait. Adam and Eve couldn't wait to see if God had their best interest at heart. So they ate from the only tree in the garden that he asked them not to. Abraham and Sarah couldn't wait to see if God would give them a child. So Sarah let Abraham sleep with her servant Hagar, figuring she could at least have a child through her. And Saul, the first king of Israel, couldn't wait for the prophet Samuel to show up and make the proper sacrifices. So he did it himself and disobeyed the Lord's commands. And as a result, he lost his crown. The last several weeks, we've been looking at the practice of spiritual disciplines. Not the classic ones, mind you, like reading, studying the Bible, or prayer, or silence and solitude, or serving, but unconventional disciplines. Putting yourself third, after God who comes first, and others second. Walking in another person's shoes, looking at the situation from their point of view. The discipline of hospitality, welcoming one another, which Reverend Stephen White shared with you last Sunday. This morning, we looked at the spiritual discipline of waiting. Now, waiting doesn't mean sitting around and just twiddling your thumbs. Waiting doesn't mean asking God for everything in prayer and then waiting for Him to hand it over. That's not what the spiritual discipline of waiting means. As the passage we're looking at this morning from the book of Isaiah shows us. And Carolyn Young is going to read the passage for us.
Why do you say, O Jacob, and speak, O Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord, and my right is disregarded by my God? Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint and strengthens the powerless. Even youths will faint and be weary, and the young will fall exhausted. But those who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint.
Thank you, Carol. So what is meant by the spiritual discipline of waiting? Sit back, take a number, please, as we search this passage for some answers. Waiting means remembering. Comfort my people. These words open chapter 40, a section of the book of Isaiah in which God is preparing Israel for 70 years of captivity in Babylon. When King Hezekiah waited for Isaiah and obeyed the Lord's commands, Israel was delivered from the Syrian Empire. But then Hezekiah got careless. Envoys from Babylon arrived and showered him with letters and gifts. King Hezekiah was taken in by the adulation and showed them Israel's armory and all the treasures of the palace. He didn't wait for Isaiah. He didn't wait for the instructions of the Lord. That's why Isaiah starts our passage saying, in effect, when you're in captivity in Babylon, don't be going around complaining and saying that my way is hidden from the Lord. My cause is disregarded by my God. No, when you're in captivity in Babylon and waiting for the Lord's deliverance, remember who you are and who God is. The Lord is the everlasting God. Always has been, always will be. He is eternal. God is not a created being. There was no Big Bang that brought God into existence. If there was a Big Bang, it was caused by God. Everything that exists has a cause, and the cause of everything that exists is God. We are the created. We are finite, which Isaiah conveys by comparing us to grass and the flowers of the field. The grass withers and the flowers fall, but the word of our God stands forever. God is simply the greatest. That's what Isaiah is reminding us of in verses 9 through 26 of chapter 40. He measures the oceans in the hollow of his hand. He marks out the heavens with the span of his hand. To him, the nations are as nothing, a drop in the bucket. Princes are not, rulers are nothing, and he will not grow tired or weary. Remembering is an exercise in humility. Not long after Booker T. Washington took over the presidency of Tuskegee Institute in Alabama, he was walking in a well-to-do section of town. A wealthy white woman stopped him and asked him if he would like to earn a few extra dollars chopping some wood. Professor Washington rolled up his sleeves, chopped the wood for the woman, brought it into her house, and stacked it near the fireplace. When he was leaving her house, a young girl recognized him and told the woman who he was. The next morning, she went to Booker T. Washington's office at the Institute and started apologizing profusely. Not at all, madam. It's not a big thing, Washington said. Occasionally, I do enjoy some manual labor. And besides, it's a delight to do something for a friend. Be humble, or you'll stumble, warned D.L. Moody. Alex Haley, author of Roots, used to keep in his office a picture of a turtle on a fence post. It was there to remind him when he started thinking a lot of himself and his great success, that, like the turtle, he got there only from the help of someone else. Andrew Murray writes that a humble person feels no jealousy or envy. They can praise God when others are preferred and blessed before them. They can bear to hear others praise when they are forgotten, because they have received the Spirit of Jesus, who pleased not himself, and who sought not his own honor. Remembering reveals what we believe about God, who he is, what he has done, and what he is capable of doing. So, don't just sit there. Wait, and remember. Practice humility, because you have received the Spirit of Jesus, who sought not his own honor. Waiting means resting. Do you not know? Have you not heard? Asked Isaiah. The Lord is the everlasting God. Now, the Hebrew word that is translated everlasting means the God of the age. God is in it for the long haul. He's in it for the duration. Resting is an exercise in trusting in God, believing that he is at work behind the scenes. Isaiah puts it like this: he sits enthroned above the circle of the earth. In the words of one commentator, something is happening when nothing is happening. Or, as Reverend Dr. John Piper explains, God is doing 10,000 things in your life. You may be aware of 3 of them. And not only may you see only a tiny fraction of what God is doing in your life, but the part that you do see may not make sense to you. So, like Paul, you may find yourself in prison, and God is advancing the gospel among the guards and the other inmates. Or like Mary and Martha, you may be mourning the death of your brother or another loved one, and God is preparing you to see his glory. Or like Paul, you may have a painful thorn, and God is making the power of Jesus more evident in your weakness. Or like King David, you may receive foolish advice from a trusted counselor, but God is preparing you for a great victory. Or like Ruth, maybe you've lost your husband and your sons, you've been through a famine, you've traveled miles dragging along your daughter-in-law, and God is preparing you to be the grandmother of a king. Andrew Murray writes that, be assured that if God waits longer than you could wish, it's only to make the blessing doubly precious. God waited 4,000 years for the fullness of time before he sent his Son. Our times are in his hands, and he will act when necessary and not delay an hour too long. A young boy was leaving church one Sunday when the pastor asked him what he learned in Sunday school. Oh, he said, they taught us that hymn, Trust and Obey. Good, the pastor said, for everything is okay to the life that trusts itself to God's precious keeping. For there is no other way. Resting measures how much we trust God. Do we believe He is working in our lives? That He is in it for the duration? Are we? So, don't just sit there. Wait. Wait and rest in the wisdom of God. Practice trusting His timing. For there is no other way. Waiting means wandering. Paul writes, even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. So, don't get discouraged if at first you don't succeed. Keep going. As probably one of the greatest comedy teams ever, the Three Stooges, once said, keep on sucking till you do succeed. Proverbs says it with a little more elegance. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. We may ask, what is God's will for my life? But this is the wrong question, says Reverend David Dykes of Green Acres Baptist Church. That's really the name of the church, Green Acres Baptist Church in Texas. This question focuses on self. And the danger of asking it is that we'll become like the old Scottish woman who went from house to house across the countryside, selling threads and buttons and shoestrings. Every time she came to a crossroads, she would throw a stick up in the air and then go in the direction in which it pointed once it landed. One day, she'd throw the stick up, pick it up, throw it up again, pick it up, throw it up again. Finally, someone said to her, why are you throwing it up more than once? Because, she said, every time it lands, it points to the left, and I want to take the road to the right. Or the sailor who kept getting lost at sea, so his friends finally gave him a compass. Nevertheless, the next time he went out on his boat, he became hopelessly confused and couldn't find land. When his friends rescued him one more time, they said, why didn't you use the compass that we gave you? I didn't dare to, he said, because I wanted to go north, and as much as I kept trying to make the needle point that way, it just kept pointing southeast. The right question is, what is God's will? This question puts our focus on God, who is at work in the world, doing His will. We just need to find out what it is and be a part of it. And really, that's how Paul ends up bringing the gospel to Macedonia, to Europe, for the very first time. Clearly, God had called Paul to preach the gospel to the Gentiles, but He gave him a few details. So on his second missionary journey, Paul headed for Asia, but was blocked by the Holy Spirit. So he turned north and started traveling through Phrygia and Galatia. When he reached Mysia, the Spirit of Jesus stopped him. So Paul and his companions, Silas and Timothy and Luke, went west to Troas. And there he had a vision of a man from Macedonia saying to him, come over and help us. Concluding that God was directing him to go preach the gospel to the Macedonians, they left immediately. Wandering is an exercise in finding out what God is doing. He will open or close doors to guide us. As J.R.R. Tolkien wrote in The Fellowship of the King of the Ring, not all who wander are lost. Wandering shows our true motivation. Are we seeking God's will, for our lives, or were we seeking God's will? So don't just sit there. Wait and wonder as you seek God's will. He will make your paths straight. Waiting means okay. I meant obey. Waiting means obey. Isaiah reassures us. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. The weak and the weary are those who do the will of God. Those who say, okay, I will obey. Those like pioneer missionary David Livingstone, who said, I would rather be in the heart of Africa in the will of God than on the throne of England out of the will of God. The famous preacher, Reverend George Truly, who pastored at the First Baptist Church of Dallas, Texas for over 45 years, writes, to know the will of God is the greatest knowledge. To find the will of God is the greatest discovery. And to do the will of God is the greatest achievement. Obedience is both active and passive. Passive obedience is surrender, which we hear in the words Jesus prayed to the Father in the garden of the night before he was crucified. Not my will, but your will be done. Passive obedience is listening for God's still small voice, like the prophet Elijah. Looking for God high and lifted up, like the prophet Isaiah. Enduring hardships, knowing that God is working everything together for our good. Active obedience is keeping his commands, even though many times they sound contrary to our human understanding, or what seems to make sense to us. A man who was looking for a job wandered into the office of a well-known businessman named Gerard. Sure, I can give you a job, he said. See those bricks over there? Take them and carry them to the other side of the yard and stack them up. Before nightfall, he completed the task and was paid. Gerard said, come back tomorrow and carry those same bricks back to the other side of the yard. The next morning, the man showed up early and got to work without a word. For over a week, he carried the bricks back and forth, until he showed that he could be trusted to follow instructions. Then, and only then, he was given a new and more important job. Go downtown and place a bid on a large lot of sugar. The people at the auction house were wondering, who is this guy? But when his bid was accepted, the auctioneer asked, who will pay the bill? And he shouted out, Mr. Gerard, who everyone knew. I'm his agent. He had earned his position by being obedient in the menial tasks. F.B. Meyer writes, don't waste your time waiting and longing for large opportunities which may never come. But faithfully handle the little things that are always claiming your attention. When we surrender to God's will, he strengthens our hearts and gives us power. And then we can say with the Apostle Paul, I can do all things through him who strengthens me. Obedience is an exercise in faith. A.W. Tozer explains that the Bible recognizes no faith that does not lead to obedience, nor does it recognize any obedience that does not spring from faith. They are two opposite sides of the same coin. Obedience expresses our love for God. Obedience proves we are faithful to Him. So don't just sit there. Wait. Say, okay, I will obey. I will wait on the Lord and be of good courage. Now, waiting means rewards. The Olympic motto is Citius, Altius, Fortius, which is Latin for swifter, higher, stronger. But the Bible has its own Olympic type of motto, written in Hebrew, which is translated into English, in verse 31. But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not be faint. When we practice spiritual disciplines, like we're training for the Olympics, including the classic disciplines, reading and studying the Bible, praying, service, worship, silence, and solitude, and unconventional disciplines, putting ourselves there, practicing walking in another person's shoes, welcoming one another, and waiting, which is remembering, resting, wandering, and obeying. Remembering who God is and what He has done and what He can do. Resting, trusting God's wisdom and timing. Wandering, trying, seeking out what God's will is. And when we find it, obeying, doing God's will. Then we will be champions of the Christian faith. And we will be able to soar on wings like eagles, to run like Olympic marathoners, and to walk and not be weary. Wait on the Lord, I say. Wait on the Lord.
Would it be too much to ask if you could cut it in half? Go ahead. That's absolutely good. Thank you very much. It's terrific. One other thing. Do you think you could break a 20?
Let's stand, please, and sing together as we close out the worship. 'Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus. Number 442.